You stumbled into a show, but you're like, I don't like shows. I like to read. And I'm like, well, I pretend to read. So why don't you pretend to like this show? And let's get going. All right, stick around for them's vampires searching for love. For them, a movie that's acting like ASMR before there was ASMR. And then how about staying up all night with Nancy, taking calls on the Boogeyman hotline? Okay, let's start the show.
Crack open a cold box of wine or pour something cold on ice because it's the Binge-Watchers podcast.
Home video headlines. What's crapping and what's happening? What's streaming in the world of TV, movies, and entertainment? Let's find out. Actually, I'm going to talk to you about a couple things. There's a movie coming out called Winter Games. It reminds me of The Cutting Edge. This is the description. Winter Games cast Haley Steinfeld opposite Miles Teller in Paramount's Olympic romance drama set during the Winter Games. Set in the high-stakes arena of the Winter Olympics. I almost said the Wimpy Olympics. Uh-oh, controversy. Set in the high-stakes... that's why, because I'm tripping on the sentence. Set in the high-stakes world of the Winter Olympics, the film follows a perpetually overlooked skier, played by Steinfeld, and a self-sabotaging hockey legend, played by Teller, who collide at their breaking points. Their unexpected connection threatens her chance for a medal and his shot at a comeback as they navigate romance and redemption in the Olympic Village. A skater and a hockey player at their breaking points fall in love? Doesn't that sound like The Cutting Edge? How is Winter Game not The Cutting Edge? I mean, The Cutting Edge is great, by the way. Go take a look at that one. There's some pictures floating around online of the new Deathstalker remake, and it looks pretty awesome. They were up over there at the Bloody Disgusting. Go over there and take a look if you want to see it. Also, their new Red Sonja trailer dropped. It looks like a mashup of Gladiator and 300. However, the new Red Sonja doesn't have that magnetic star power like Brigitte Nielsen. Movie of the week? What's the movie of the week? It's about a happily single vampire who works in her aunt's curio shop when she's not feeding on various suitors and sleazebags. However, when she falls for a handsome psychiatrist, she'll discover that no affliction is more horrific than love, and I like bats. It's a Polish film. Now, during the 70s and 80s, Poland was going through major social and political struggles, so their cinema is marked by two major cinematic waves. One is called Cinema of Moral Anxiety and a Cinema of Moral Discontent. This is the first cinematic vampire movie in Polish history, according to a study done by Culture and Society magazine in Poland. I dug up this fascinating article that called it Patchwork Gothic, blending Eastern and Western ideals in a fantasy story. Now, it will divide audience goers. I mean, here are the top rated reviews from both IMDb, absolutely awful, and the other one is one of the most unique and brilliant vampire movies. We'll be right back with our favorite bits from the Polish vampire movie making history, I Like Bats. Right after these messages. Handmaid's Tale? Dope Sick? This Fool? Only Murders in the Building? The Bear? It's Hulu. And it's free for 30 days with our link. Alright, now back to the show already progress. I'm like skipping words today, I'm having syntax errors. The show that's already in progress. Progress is happening on a show. It's our favorite bits from the cinematic Polish vampire movie, I Like Bats. Not to be confused with the movie Bats, which we already covered. No, this is I Like Bats. Alright, there's actually a close-up of a real bat eating fruit. I thought it was almost like a documentary reel. It might be B-roll footage, but I think they probably shot it themselves with a real bat. It looks like they had access to real bats. Is Poland filled with bats? I should have looked up that fact. I did not look that up. However, yeah, I mean, they're real bats on the screen, but anyway, this is like a close-up. Somebody took the time to study the bat and film it cinematically. I don't know if they, the thing about movies is like sometimes they would buy film from other things. So it's possible the close-up of the bat was produced for a documentary film or just animal footage that was out there at the time and they just bought it for the movie. Who knows? But I'm thinking not. The way these movies are probably funded and shot on film, they probably just had access to a bat, and they shot it. Who knows? The sound is revved up like an ASMR before there was ASMR. If you watched it on a streamer, well, you know how they do like the ad breaks, and the ad breaks always happen at awkward times. I watched it on a streamer, and they had an ad break right when a sex scene started. So I thought, oh, that's well timed. They know I'm gonna wait to see what happens to the nurse, and then I discovered I was desperately out of Rice Krispie treats for some reason. Yeah, so the vampire is searching for love. That feels pretty honest in this movie. Also, there's like incredible metaphors with intercutting the nature tone, nighttime, skinny dipping during the vampire, like losing her virginity sequence or whatever. Yeah, so it's like she falls in love. It looks like she hasn't given her magical cherry away to anybody, and then they do all this crazy footage, which is making love to the psychiatrist. So you get the idea that the B-roll footage here, this magical, mystical, fantastic footage that's happening while they're having intercourse, is all about not just carnal knowledge, it's about setting the tone that they're falling in love. And they did a good job in the movie. But clearly the movie didn't have any, I don't know, they didn't have those, what do you call it, coordinators? Intimacy, love coordinators? The love negotiators? No, they didn't have that then. I think they figured it out on their own. Between the actors and the director, is that what happened? Camera was definitely rolling because I saw it. It's caught. It's in the movie. Anyway, we got a magical rating system. Speaking of magic, we got a magical movie rating system on the show. We always say binge now, binge later, binge never. Watch it now, get around to it, avoid it. This would be a binge never if not for the historic value to cinema that it brings. So we're going to leave it as a binge later. Fan service, if the fans are chiming in, what are they squawking about this week? Someone on the Witchboard 2025 movie team said that they liked our reel on Instagram. I didn't know we had the reach to reach them, so that's cool. Respect the remake. Staff picks, if we can recommend a different movie of the week, if you're not into I Like Bats, or you got a fear of bats, or you just don't like vampire movies, or it's too slow for you, or whatever have you. Not your cup of tea, as they say. Somewhere, sometimes. I've heard that a lot in movies. Not my cup of tea. The 7th run of Summer Slash. So this summer is the 7th annual Summer Slash, and we're doing part 7s, because we thought that would be a funny game to play and a joke. Literally, like, the 7th sequel or the 7th movie in a horror movie series, and that would run it on Summer Slash. Yeah, it's made us watch mostly things we don't want to see, because by the time you get to the 7th one, my gosh, your typical horror movie franchise is out of steam or getting remade, right? Not to do a callback, but there you go. Anyway, we're actually talking about this movie. Here's the description. A demonic force has chosen Freddy Krueger as its portal to the real world. Can Heather Langenkamp play the part of Nancy one last time and trap the evil being trying to enter our world? And Wes Craven's new nightmare. All right. In this film, Freddy is depicted much closer to what Wes Craven had originally intended for the character. More menacing, less comical. They gave an updated makeup job, like he looks different, a little sharper, a little more boogeyman style. Changed the clothes a little bit. However, according to IMDb, in 2015, before he died, Wes Craven regretted changing the appearance of Freddy Krueger and said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Which supposedly is why the Ghostface masks stay the same in all the Scream movies. Or at least all the Wes Craven Scream movies. What they're doing with the new ones, who knows? Because he did how many did he do? 3 or 4 of them? Or did he just do the first 3? He might have done the first 3, and then I think it was the new filmmakers after that. Anyway. All right. The events of this movie revolve around Heather Langenkamp having a stalker. In real life, she did have a stalker, and Wes Craven got her permission to weave it into the story. The death of Heather's husband's character in the movie largely came out due to concerns that Freddy simply wasn't killing enough people in the screenplay. One plot element that's kind of cool is like, so the demon was trapped in the movies, right? So this is supposed to be like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies come to life, and so everybody that was a character in those movies, their lives get intertwined with their characters from the movie series, and it's basically saying that like this demon was trapped in the movies, but when the movie series ended, it wants to wreak havoc in our world, and it gets out because there's no movies to continuation to keep it busy or whatever. I don't know. Freddy's death in the movie is similar to his original death when he's burned alive by a group of vigilante parents. He gets burned alive in a fairy tale style oven. Spoiler alert, it's kind of like the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb ending. Yeah. This is the only Nightmare on Elm Street movie where Freddy does not kill any teenagers. Every character killed in this movie is an adult. In A Nightmare on Elm Street 84, the movie that Glenn's character is watching on television to try to stay awake is The Evil Dead from 81. But in this movie, the movie that's playing in the background is actually the original A Nightmare on Elm Street from 84. Kind of like a movie within a movie within a movie. Anyway, Freddy Krueger was included in the end credits as himself. According to the 2010 documentary Never Sleep Again, there was a scripted but scrapped sequence that would have seen Robert Englund transformed into a fly and trapped in the web of a giant Freddy spider in an homage to 1958's The Fly. They didn't get it shot due to both the budget constraints and the time that they had. Here's the thing. When you watch the movie, you think that Robert Englund is being possessed and seduced by the demon. So you think that, like, when you see the monstrous version of Freddy Krueger show up in the real world, you think that some part of that is Robert Englund. You know what I'm saying? Like, he got possessed by it. So if they had this other sequence, I guess we would know that he's actually just one of the victims. I'm actually glad they got cut, because my whole thing was like, he got consumed by the demon and is possessed, which makes it scarier, you know? There was lots of cameos. Some of the funeral goers there's a funeral in the movie because, like I said, the husband character gets killed, so I think at the funeral it's like everybody that worked on the Nightmare movies, so they include some of the Nightmare actors playing a version of themselves, like Tuesday Night. And then Bob Shea, who's been in like 4 Freddys, he's like the executive or former owner or chairman of New Line Cinemas. I don't know if he sold the studio or if he still owns it, but he owned it back in the day, I'm pretty sure. Or he ran it. Anyway, so he like pops up in a lot of the Freddy movies, and he's in this one too. I feel like Wes Craven combined the best elements from Part 2 and the OG for this one. Because in Part 2, Freddy does come to the real world because he possesses a teenager, and, you know, he runs amok. It's like... And then in the original, it's just much more intense, and it seems deadlier and more serious, right? Like he's just out to get the kill count up, you know, he's obsessed with his teenagers or whatever, and he's not making jokes like in some of the other sequels. So... yeah, it feels like he took the best elements of the original in Part 2 or whatever and slammed them into Part 7. My favorite Nightmare, okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and tell you. My favorite Nightmare on Elm Street is Part 4. And in a way, kind of like Parts 1 through 5 kind of tell one long story. The series actually might have some of the best continuity in a horror movie series between sequels. Other examples might include like Scream and the characters reoccurring in Saw and like the Conjuring universe stuff. But if you think about it, like, so the first movie goes to the third movie, to the fourth movie, to the fifth movie, and it's like a consistent story with the consistent characters, because, like, you know, the Nancy character from the first one fights him in 3, trains some teenagers with some dream powers. The dream powers continue on into Part 4 and then transfer to another teenager, and she becomes like the main... my favorite character, Alice, you know, who fights Freddy in Parts 4 and 5. And then 6 is tied in to 7, because they say, like, the movie he escaped from would have been the last one, which would have been Freddy's Dead, and because they killed Freddy on screen, the demon doesn't have enough energy and wants to get into the real world, something like that. Like the nightmare becomes real, right? But they're pretty much all tied together. I mean, like, 2 would be a standalone simply because I mean, I guess it could fit into the continuity because he briefly gets into the real world by possessing a teenager. That teenager overcomes him in the end, but then that movie ends in a nightmare sequence where Freddy hasn't been dealt with. He actually, the kids, that's like, there's an infamous scene. Well, there's two infamous scenes from part two. The barbecue where he first gets into the real world and terrorizes everybody at a barbecue pool party. And then the second scene for that movie is the ending, where they reveal that no, they didn't get rid of Freddy, and he's got all the kids on a school bus, and they're all locked into a nightmare, which is actually pretty good nightmare ending, for a nightmare movie. So that's part two. Which, like, for the longest time, part two was considered like the movie that nobody liked, but they just restored it, they did a documentary about it, and it's kind of like a cult favorite now. Where are we? Ah, that's pretty much all I had to say. Another short one, Um, I tried to look up more stuff about this Polish vampire movie, and there wasn't a lot. It just talked about, the social and political struggles of the filmmakers at the time, having to do things mostly in metaphor for fear that they would get in trouble for the types of movies they wanted to make. They were making a lot of social commentaries about their society. The fact that they even made a Polish vampire movie is something to celebrate. I mean, they made it. It has there's some gratuitous stuff, or there's definitely suggested stuff. That's the funny thing too, is like, because it's mostly suggested, it's very psychological. Its pacing sucks. Like I said, it would have been a binge never if not for the fact that it's part of history and part of a cinema movement, and something that I think like film fans should at least be aware of. You don't have to watch it yourselves. I've already talked about it. I reacted for it to you. That was all weird. Yeah, that was weird. That was like me talking like dyslexic, which I might be. I don't know. Add it to my list of things that they say I have. Basically, because I shared my reaction with you, you don't have to watch it. But of course, you always can. I mean, for the most part, the list I'm making is kind of worth your while, I think. Right? So listen, let's talk about what's going to happen next. You know what? Okay, I can speak to one of these movies that's coming up for next week on Summer Slash. We're gonna do Frankenstein Unbound. Kind of a cool thing. There's a guy, I think he admires Dr. Frankenstein or is part of his bloodline. But anyway, it's like the dude, or it might actually, I don't know if it's legitimately mixing the time machine from H.G. Wells and he is H.G. Wells and just wants to visit Dr. Frankenstein. I don't know if it's that tied in, but anyway, there's a guy. He studies the work of Frankenstein, and then I think he has a time machine and he goes back to the time period where Frankenstein's monster is created. This is from memory. We like to do a lot of these reactions from memory, so forgive me if I don't got all the flubs right. The flubs. See, I care more about making mistakes than telling the facts. Just kidding. Chill out. Jeez. Guys are so serious this week. Yeah, so this guy, has a time machine and goes back and then runs into Frankenstein's monster, which I thought it's like one of my favorite Frankenstein movies. It has been for a while. And I think we brought it up on the show maybe a couple times. But anyway, I haven't given it the full Binge-Watchers reaction. We haven't put it through the ringer yet. We will next week. And then I have to watch The Children of the Corn, which is, I'd like to get people ready if I'm going to do religious horror films. But I guess, like, I was looking it up. Children of the Corn is supposedly based on a Stephen King story that was turned into the first Children of the Corn, and there's a bunch of sequels. They might have like 8 or 9 of them now, and a remake maybe, and a couple more of those. I don't really know how many there are. I've never seen a Children of the Corn movie. I thought it was like Village of the Damned, but when I looked up the history of it and the origin, I guess it's different. I don't know. Because, like, Village of the Damned? There's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 psychic kids or a whole classroom of psychic kids. I think there's 2 versions of this movie. I think there's a black and white one, and there's one with Christopher Reeve. And, like, the school teacher who's trying to hold it together, because the kids control the town. Village, they're all damned. So basically, like, all these psychic kids are born at the same time with intense psychic powers. They take over the town. All the adults are on edge because they have the power to kill you, and the kids are out of control. And it's like dealing with their manipulation, and that's Village of the Damned. But I thought Children of the Corn was pretty much the same. I guess there's like a biblical bent to that. There's like a cult of kids living in the corn. I don't know. Children of the Corn, literally. Children of the Corn. They come out of a cornfield and they murder adults. I don't know. We'll find out. But again, it's going to be pretty removed from the original story because we're talking about the 7th sequel in a series of sequels. So they're, how good can it possibly be? Okay. I know you're like, man, he's watching some horrible sequels to all these shows. Eventually, we're getting to some good stuff. I told you, we're deep in the list. This is like going to be maybe the halfway point. We're almost there. I was looking further down the list, taking a little peek at what's coming up in the next few weeks. We got some interesting sequels to talk about. Anyway, Summer/7, we'll start doing our summer prizes and whatever else. We're going to start kicking out the Summer/merch. I've been lazy this year. I haven't approved designs, and I haven't made any designs myself. With the exception of like some of the episode artwork, obviously gets dropped with the episodes, but we haven't done like the official T-shirt yet. We'll get around to that probably soon, hopefully before the marathon is over, before the horror movie marathon on the show is over. We'll like to kick out something to you. Anyway, dude, I saw a bunch of new Funko Pops for like horror movies, and like I'd love to throw some out. I just love pops. Usually, what happens when I throw out a pop contest, I end up with an extra pop, and then I'm just giving you behind the scenes details. That's how you get a pop. If you throw a pop contest out, you might get to keep a pop yourself. Anyway, perks of the job. Perks of the job. Am I stalling for time? Maybe, because I wanted to hit my perfect time. I'm timing this whole thing, and I know exactly what I'm doing. Stalling. Anyway, you can't stay here. You don't have to go home. My recommendation is you watch one or maybe all the movies I talked about this week. Actually, no. I'm still wondering if you guys actually watched Child of Peach, which I was talking about a few weeks ago, that kicked off the Summer Slash this year. Fascinating movie. Does it have a werewolf? Not really, but it has like a king devil who's like lord of a island of monsters and demons. I thought it was pretty fascinating. Anyway, it's weird and disturbing. You're right. It's too early to recap the whole summer, so let's just keep cranking along. Yeah, basically, that's we're all. I was gonna make a global warming joke, but I immediately lost the energy to do so. In my mind, I was picturing something like eggs on a sidewalk, and I was trying to say that we're gonna be watching movies while we're roasting on the sidewalk. I couldn't tie it together. It just didn't come together, so I'm not gonna say it. Anyway, that's that.